Window to my soul.
A window, window, window.
To the windows. To the walls. To the walls. To the sweat drop down my... Oh, anyways. Let's start the podcast.
My power dialer. Till the sweat drop down my power dialer.
Okay, there we go. That's perfect.
That's PG.
So, speaking of PG, that reminds me of pipeline generation. It's a generation of pipeline generators. Anyways,
And real quick, you look great in this podcast, but I want to fix your cold collar because you look good.
Oh, I've got my elite tech sales swag. All right. So, Jay, let's talk about the interview sales cycle. Just like in any sales cycle, there are different stages to win the game and mark the deal as closed won. In interviewing, we've got different rounds. It might start with a recruiter screening call, and I'm going to leave the rest of the stages to the conversation. But we're going to help the audience understand the different stages of the sales cycle in interviewing so they can sell themselves in the process and mark close one on their dream job and make a ton more money, like you've been helping your members in Elite Tech Sales open up the huge financial upside of this path. I love what you're doing. And what's so cool, dude, is you're helping people get into Databricks, Google, Deal, all these top companies, the best of the best. So what's cool is everything you're going to share is backed by real world experience, and people are going to get an inside look into what goes on behind the scenes from a hiring perspective of the best companies out there. So are you ready to get into the different stages of the interviewing game?
Yes, and I guarantee some of your audience will walk away from this like just landing a role. Like even last night I was at our gym Squatch, and like there's a guy in the sauna talking. He's like, dude, I'm in my last round in Navan.
Oh, Navan, one of the best companies in expense management.
And like just gave this guy so much advice. So it actually prepped me a lot for today. So I'm super excited because he was asking about like, hey, like what are the rounds like and everything. So yeah, I'm very, very excited to get into this topic.
Yeah, you help thousands of people in this space get into not just any company, but the best company. Because in a past, and the best role for them. In a past podcast, you talked about how tech sales won't solve your problems. And I love that line. I've been quoting you. Getting into tech sales with any company won't solve your problems, but what will create freedom? Landing with the best. So let's dig into it. But the first thing is we got to get the first interview. We got to get in the door with the recruiter screening call. So you have some tips, some insights on how to network effectively to get to that first round. So what are your tips on how to network?
Yeah, and I think I actually just spoke to someone about this today, because this can actually be the difference between the job search process being very enjoyable or just being this like 6-month back burner task that you actually hate. So really, like if you pay attention to anything and like you are just about to interview, like pay attention to this beginning part right now. And that is, how do you even go about starting the process? And so think of 60 minutes of time, like equally. And on one hand, you do cold applications, you fill out the DEI, all that stuff. And then all of a sudden, on the other hand, you just go for referrals. Well, with one energy unit of time, the cold applying, it's not impossible to get a role. People do, but I see like 3 to 4%, reply rate. Okay, we got your application and we want to move forward. So that's option A. And then option B is like, just get a referral from someone who works there. And I see about a 95 to 97% first round screening when that happens. So that's the first thing right there is allocate your energy appropriately, get referrals. I'll stop there because there's so much I could go into, but anything you want to add, Chris?
Yeah, what a game changer out of the gate. Let's not make our life more difficult than it needs to be. The interview rate when you're cold applying is so freaking low, and yet it's so high when you get a warm referral. And getting a warm referral is approaching the job like you do the job. You're selling yourself, and you get the chance to learn from the inside. If you get referred from an individual contributor or someone, you might learn the KPIs and what it takes to succeed and get some of the questions they were asked to prepare in advance. So, and even if it's not being referred by them, you get such an insider edge. So I know that with your members, man, you're not letting any of them fall victim to cold applying. And I say victim because it's literally playing the victim by not taking ownership for what you really need to do to make it happen. So is there anything you would add in terms of who to network with as we play what I call the networking chess match? Because you've got recruiters, hiring managers, VPs of sales, you've got SDRs, then you've got AEs. And by the way, this is a little nuance I have to throw in there. Imagine you could go to an SDR who's doing okay. What about a top performing SDR? That actually might be better. What about a top AE? But there's so many ways to think about it. And at the end of the day, we want to get referred. But what have you seen as the most efficient path and effective way to play that networking chess match?
Such a good question. And right before we get into the whole matrix of like how you even play chess, if you're still listening to this and you're like, oh, like, I don't know if I can reach out to strangers who I don't know. Like, I don't know anyone at the company.
By the way, you better still be listening. We're dropping gems. Come on.
Yeah. Just break the belief. Like, people want to help you a ton.
Yes.
When I was at Dell, people reached out to me a lot. I'm sure when you're at Oracle and Google, you get a random LinkedIn message every now and then. So if you have a thought that people don't want to help you, just eliminate it. Like, people get referral bonuses. So
you're doing them the favor.
You are.
Okay, that's a mindset, by the way, that I have to emphasize. How can you shift off ourselves and the outcome we want, although we will get it as a byproduct, to focus on what's in it for them, doing them a favor, getting them their referral bonus?
Yep.
And as a result, you get what you want. And it's the same with cold calling, by the way. I have to go there. But imagine if we came from a place that if I can help someone with my solution, I have an obligation to reach out. And it becomes I'm doing the prospect a favor by reaching out because I'm offering my company an access. So it's funny how that same mindset applies to networking, and it might lead to cold calling that hiring manager, which is an ultimate game changer because you have very little competition on the phones doing that.
No, I completely agree. So let's just get into referrals like right off the bat. So the first thing with getting referrals is like volume negates luck. So I actually push some of our members, like we'll always break down doors for people, but like people who really just want a lot of volume.
Yeah.
I always say, okay, cool. Like send us a screenshot of your LinkedIn request max out each week. Like that.
Good. I like that. I like that.
Especially in a competitive market. Now, step 2, very important, is a good frame of value. And we're talking about like very small differentiations to stand out. And one thing that I see that increases someone's likelihood of getting on just like a networking referral call is how they send the message. You can send it with your request. You could send it after you connect with them. But I see people typically be like, hey, like I am super interested in this role. I would love to pick your brain, blah, blah, blah. The interesting thing is like, I actually don't see that work as effectively as people who come in and say, almost like they're trying to vet out the company if it's a good fit for them, like a higher frame of value. And I'd be like, hey, Chris, you know, I'm really loving my role right now. People have mentioned really good things about Google. I see you're crushing it there. I'd be curious to get on a call with you for 5 minutes and just ask you about your experience to see if it'd be a good fit and maybe make it shorter copy so it's not like too long. But when you're asking to network with someone and you're not just like head over heels, like I'm sold on the company.
Yeah.
And you're almost entering in with a higher frame value of like discernment, like, hey, like I'm really good at my role, or like I know I'm valuable without being cocky. And I just want to vet out your experience and see if it aligns with my long-term vision.
Yes.
That is like a really good frame to enter with. I'd say another tip is when you network with someone, for the most part, make sure there's actually like a job opening for that role.
Yes.
There are situations where there might not be an open role, but you could still position yourself to be like the number one bench candidate when a job rec opens, which I think is like a hack. Like be the first one on a hiring manager's list when that job does open. And I even had that when like I became a field seller at Dell. They made like a public, you know, job requisition or whatever. And they had to go through the process, but I was already the number one bench candidate. So it's like the DM just wanted to shake my hand and give me the role. So it's like, you can still position yourself very good that way. And then typically like when you run the call, ask good questions. We can get into details if you want to with that. But when you go in with more of a frame of like discernment and vetting out if it's even a good fit for you, typically it leads to more flow towards the end of the conversation where I'm like, you know what, Chris, I wasn't for sure if this would be the right company for me, but everything you said actually makes me think that it is worth a shot. I did see an open job posting. Would you be willing to refer me for this position? And so all of a sudden it kind of flips, because like when you're going in for a role and you're just trying to vet out if it's actually a good fit, and then you're kind of selling me on like, hey, why Google? Why Google? Why Google? I'm like, you know what? I think you won me over. Would you be willing to refer me for the role? And then it's
Yeah.
like a win-win situation. So it's a small frame shift, but I think just on average, like we see it work really well. And we like to build up the value of the people we work with, because ultimately that's how they land the top value jobs with the
Mm.
top pay. And I think a lot of people undervalue themselves, especially like we've worked with so many killers that are coming from great organizations with all this complex technical background, and they undervalue themselves because they don't even know how much they're worth in the market.
Mm.
So it is cool to be able to build up that confidence and then increase the likelihood of their success with really, really good networking.
Mm. Tech sales is an amazing career path where you can make as much as doctors and lawyers without having to cut anyone open or work ungodly hours. Looking back 10 years later, having personally started out in tech sales at Oracle, then moved to Google Cloud and a startup, and now fully launching into entrepreneurship, I can say with confidence that tech sales transformed my life through the income that it produced, the skill development, the connections, and the self-development that I unlocked along the journey. If you're someone who wants to strategically build your own six-figure tech sales career without wasting valuable time and earnings potential, then consider Tech Sales Accelerator and our 12-week programs as your blueprint. Our partners are breaking in and crushing quota at top companies like Oracle, Google Cloud, VMware, and Salesforce, leveraging our in-depth video content, one-on-one coaching, community, and network access. And we'd love to partner with you too to accelerate your own success on this path. If you'd like to learn more about Tech Sales Accelerator and our programs, then feel welcome to book time at my Calendly link, linked in the description of this video, and we'll walk you through all the details. Or just download my free cold calling system that's going to help you crush the phones quickly, also linked in the description of this video. All right, let's get back to the episode. One individual I worked with happened to find a hiring manager at the right time at Snowflake. She was new. He reached out to her. She loved it, and she had to build a team. And he was able to position himself and do well in the interview process. But the whole time she became his advocate, and she was the decision maker. Although the VPs can influence as well, and maybe even teammates. So that was powerful to start there. Do you think that the ultimate move is to start with the hiring manager? What are your thoughts on that versus, like, obviously it's a great move to have an IC, an individual contributor, SDR, AE, especially if they do well, refer you. You leverage the fact that they get paid a referral bonus. And recruiters can work too, right? But, yeah, you could use it. You could call up a VP of sales. I've seen that too. And they can give you a nudge to the top of the list and say, interview this person, although they're not deciding. So just, again, this is the chess match. These are the moves we can make. If you had to really boil it down, right, there's no right answer, but based on what you've seen, is hiring manager the ultimate move? Or, yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, there is no silver bullet, but I would say hiring manager or the role above the role you're going for. So if you're going for an SDR role, if you can get an AE
Yes.
refer you, I see that work pretty well. And I think one person back in the day, like they were running a referral call, and I think one of the questions they ended with after they asked for a referral is they said, hey, like, do you know the hiring manager? And no joke, what the person said is like, oh yeah, I actually went through new hire with them and I got onboarded with them. Let me just send them a Slack message right now.
Yes.
So you never know how relationships and political capital is going to be distributed within an organization. But when you just talk to like 3 to 4 people within a company and you ask these questions, like you never know who has a relationship with who. And even one of the individuals we just helped get a job at Databricks, he had like 3 to 4 people advocating to like this director internally. So it's like, it was just crazy to see like how relationships can influence everything. But Yeah, I would definitely say, the role above you or a hiring manager, it's like you get that first impression right. Everything else can really flow for you.
Yeah, both are coming from more of a place of authority.
Mm-hmm.
And just like in enterprise tech sales, if I'm a seller selling to a large account, I want to create a groundswell of champions internally that can sell up the chain from the inside, while also influencing the C-level decision maker, which might be the hiring manager. So one thing I've come to learn is that even I was looking at AWS before I became an entrepreneur and went all in, which thank God I did. Here we are, baby. Best decision ever. When I was going for AWS, I met with multiple hiring managers. I met with sellers, and I was the first on the bench, but there was a hiring freeze.
Mm-hmm.
But I had multiple sellers ping or message internally the hiring manager. Like, so to your point, just like you were a candidate, that you're coaching them so well to do these things.
And
So this manager's getting message from multiple people. I'm proactively in there. They're vouching for me. And one thing I do too is just confirm, like, from my understanding, you don't you get a signing bonus? What I've seen in the industry is MongoDB, they got 3,000 equity, other companies, a couple grand. I'm curious, what's the case here? And you might already actually, if you do your homework well, you already know. But just to double affirm, like, not that I'd say double affirm, I'm just saying between you and I would double affirm, I'd confirm that, say like, hey, honestly, my goal is to get you paid. Would you be open to just giving a quick blessing to my resume, and then even like giving me a little insight throughout the process? Is it okay if I came to you for with intention? And so I think it's cool too. So it's like you get, I don't know, I'm pulling this out of my but a triple whammy of like, one, they're going to refer you. Okay, that's one thing. Bump you up the list. And you could ask for the resume blessing, although if you're working with Elite Tech Sales, you get a resume template that's amazing, which is linked in the description of this video. So it's like you probably won't need help. But like they could give you a little gravy, but let's not over-rotate. But that could be a double whammy. So resume blessing, referral. Can you put in a good word to the hiring manager? Boom. And are you open to like kind of working with me through the process? And I've seen people do that successfully, where before each interview they have an open line of communication. They get coached from the inside, baby.
And
other people can't compete with that,
dude,
So.
Not at all. Can I give your audience like a savage way to prospect in for a referral? Like I've had people do this, and it's like one of the best ways no one talks about.
Absolutely.
So it's multi-threading to a CRO. I've had multiple people do this. I think I even have a Loom video on our blog, on our website, of me like showing people how to do this. But essentially, like if you go to, let's just say, go to LinkedIn, look for a job opening posted in the last week, confirm it's available on the website. I've taught members you can scrape for the like CRO or VP's email, and essentially send them like a really, really short email with your resume attached. I forget the exact copy, but like the key is to make it like super short.
Yeah.
And just be like for me, I'd be like, hey, I'm Jay, advanced 4 roles in 2.5 years. Saw you had this opening. Would you point me to the right point of contact? And so what's really interesting is when we have people do this, after they send that email, then they'll multi-thread and send the CRO a LinkedIn message, and the note will just say sent you an email. So short everything. And I think every time we've had a member do this, essentially what happens is they get a referral from the CRO to the head of recruiting. And so your first conversation with the head of recruiting starts with, hey, we got a referral from our CRO for this position. We're really excited to talk to you. Like, could you imagine any stronger way to really start an interview process?
No. And you hit on great prospecting principles that I teach SDRs and AEs. It's like multi-thread, right? You want to diversify your investments in your portfolio financially across you want to make different investments. Same with multi-threading, investing across different outbound channels. Using LinkedIn to reference email boosts email responses. I love the brevity. That's a pattern interrupt. And what you said there, 4 roles in 3 years, right? Was it 3 years?
Yeah, I think
I want to get it right, cause, or 2.5. Okay, that's even better, right? That's a mic drop statement. And it's like, I think of someone I came across that she impacted $900K in revenue in the insurance sales. Like that could be her mic drop statement.
And
I impacted, drove 900K in insurance sales, making a ton of cold calls, and like made just a simple little mic drop, whatever it is.
yeah, so like a hook like that, and your audience they should have access to that resume template, or we'll have some free resource. But when you have that brevity mixed with a very, very high quality looking document like your white page, it's easy for a CRO or someone important to be like, I don't know this guy, but it was a good hook. They have a good resume. It's not going to hurt to put them front of the line.
Yeah, it looks nicer than other resumes because you got a great template. It's a pattern interrupt. You can't be perceived as better if you're not perceived as different.
Exactly.
The final thing is you had a good call to action that was easy to respond to.
Mm-hmm.
You weren't even asked, what was it again? It's like, I forget.
The best person to connect with about this role. Like, it's just super quick. That way they can just forward it internally.
Exactly. So you're just reducing the friction to them helping you. I think you've mentioned this before. Make it easy for people to help you.
Yeah, lower the cost to transact.
Yes. And then even with the account executive that you get to refer you want to have the job rec ready.
Yeah.
Open role, and you have the exact rec. Make it easy for them to refer you. Mm-hmm. Okay, so now we're talking to the recruiter, and we hit on a key stage, an actual stage of this game to mark your sales cycle. Interviewing close one is getting in the door. That is a stage. I love that we hit on that. The next stage is you're in the recruiter screening call. And from my experience, you don't have to freak out about this, but they're kind of almost like an executive assistant wants to like manage the calendar of an executive and filter out people that are wasting their time. Like they're kind of filtering to see, like, do you have some intention? Do you have some relevant experience? They're going to ask you about your background and why you want to work there, maybe your pay expectations, which, you've got some good advice around that. Mm-hmm. So it's just a high level, but anything you would add in terms of that first, how to think about the first recruiter screening call?
Yeah, I mean, definitely like you're going to be asked, like, tell me about yourself and your experience. So be able to speak about that. I will never forget this, but one of the best compliments I probably have ever received in my life from a recruiter is I got on a recruiting screening call. And I'll never forget the recruiter kicking it off with like the most absurd statement. I think she said something like, "Hey, Jay, this is going to be the shortest call I've done all day. I looked at your resume and it was so beautifully made that I already know you're going to be a good candidate, and I'm going to move you on to the next round. Let's just use the next 5 minutes to talk about any logistics or any questions you have for me."
No way.
And I think that's a testament to front loading the work and like prepping with your documents and preparation ahead of time. Because you can actually communicate a lot before your mouth even opens with how you prepare. So don't sleep on the details. Like, you can really accelerate trust being built, because like, while I can, sit on a call with you, Chris, and be like, "Hey, I'm good at this, I'm good at that." Like, people want to see the work you actually produce. And so being able to produce something of good value is important. So that's one thing. The tell me about yourself, we could get into that if you want.
So the thing is, the audience, you guys can check out the in-depth conversation Jay and I had where we covered 37 interview questions, including grand slam or slam dunk questions. You call them slam dunk questions.
Yeah.
The questions that you need to slam dunk, like tell me about your experience and your resume. Why do you want to work for us? Like, why? It could be why tech sales, although why do you want to work for us is more important. What's your vision? Foundational questions. And that's going to be asked in the recruiter screening call. We covered those, and we covered the questions like behavioral and role-related interview questions that you're going to be asked in next rounds that we'll get to. Mm-hmm. And so I think like we can just have the audience like check that out.
It was so
right.
So
oh my gosh, it's so good. But like, it's helpful even to say like these are the types of questions you might get. And one thing I think about is we cannot underestimate the power of turning your recruiter into your champion. Mm-hmm. And I always make an effort to bring a personal touch and show that like I care to get to know them and ask, questions like you've coached your members on, and it's really stuck with me, asking questions that are designed to learn about them and make them feel good, getting them to talk about the culture and what they love, but like create a good experience for them, because the more we connect with the recruiter, the more they love us, they might give us a little extra info and give us a little edge to prepare for the next rounds. And I will say with Google Cloud, my crowning achievement, as I always say, in terms of a tough interview process to win at, Jen Mashad, shout out to Jen. You changed my life, seriously.
Thank you, Jen.
Now I get all the marketing like how I got into Google on a YouTube video. Ex Google.
Jen's like,
No,
"This
Jen
guy."
Jen is awesome. And she her and I really built a relationship though. And Google hit a hiring freeze, but she had my back. And she even helped me negotiate a signing bonus that I wanted.
That's nice.
And it was just the testament of building a great relationship. But and so that was one thing I just wanted to share too, is just from a mindset perspective, like don't underestimate the value of building that relationship. Anything else you'd add on the recruiter call? Because I actually have one other piece that we're going to role play real quick.
Yeah.
But do you want me to get into the role play?
And just to highlight the point you made, like maybe even ask your recruiter, how can I make your life easy throughout this process?
Yes.
Like, and you probably have done that. And
Yes.
one thing that's always stuck with me, my mom, she worked in medical sales, and I'll never forget, she had an opportunity once to be a recruiter. And she essentially turned it down because she said, I don't like the fact my product can say no to me. Meaning like,
Yeah.
when you're a recruiter, sometimes like more independent recruiter, but in general, like you're kind of combining like talent with like hiring managers, and like your
Yeah.
product can say no if they don't like you. And so just going above and beyond to ask how you can make their life easy is just like a nice touch where they'll want to reach out and help you. Like I've had so many people we worked with Elite Tech Sales where the recruiters reaching out to them proactively, be like, hey, do you want to prep for this next round? I'll give you some insight. So just cannot underestimate the power of that. And even when I went to Dell, I had one of the hiring managers almost tell me all the questions I was going to be asked in all 4 interviews, just because I went above and beyond. And actually, one of my good friends back in the day, shout out Miles Alexander, a really good guy. He hooked me up because he was an intern at Dell. He hooked me up with one of the hiring managers who just was like, hey, here's what it's going to look like. Just prep. And I was like, all right, that's all I'm doing for the next month.
Yeah.
And then they flew me out to Boston. The rest is history.
Dude.
And that's why we're sitting here today.
And that's so funny. That's why we're sitting here today. And I can say I worked at Google because, dude, you took a month to prepare after getting the answers to the test, like the actual questions. It was same, dude. I spent a month after networking to get the questions and practice. So there's just something to be said. We both did that to get into top companies. We spent a month to just prepare.
Totally.
But we networked to get those questions, so there were no surprises. So that's the networking is table stakes to get in the door and get interviews, but also to get the questions, the answers to the test to prepare in advance so that when it's game time, you're not caught practicing on the court. You don't have curveballs.
Yeah, and it's also like it's not cheating. Like a lot of them I feel like are willing to give you the questions because it's like, okay, cool, like will you actually do the work?
Yeah.
So it's will you?
There's a difference between having the knowledge and taking action. And that's also why a program like Elite Tech Sales is so valuable, because you guys, yes, you give the knowledge, but it's also out here when we give value through our podcasts. The last 3 podcasts that we've done are just, it gives really the answers to the test, but it's implementation that you guys really help. You help get the result and you get it faster with less pain.
Literally peace of mind, no guesswork.
Yeah.
Like people getting offers in under a month, making over the AE market's been so full, man. Like these people are making like $50K more typically than what they're making. So it's like, so your pay is just incongruent with how well you communicate.
Yeah. It's not just like you get the results like guaranteed in faster time, but you get a better result.
Way better.
Guaranteed in faster time. So now imagine you're the recruiter and you ask me, what is your pay expectations? Put me on the spot. You did it last time. I let you go.
Am I on the spot?
No, you're putting me on the spot because I'm seeing if I'm coachable, and I learned.
Okay, cool. Well, Chris is going to crush this. So Chris, I enjoyed our call today. I think everything aligns. Want to check in before we move to the next round. What are your pay expectations for this role?
So I've done my homework and I have a sense of what typical pay is in the market for this type of role, but I don't want to make assumptions. I'm curious, like, what is the range that you guys have for this role?
Depending on experience, it's probably going to be, anywhere from 200 to 225. Does that work for you?
Well, I definitely want to go through the process. I'm going to show you my value, but I see myself at the higher end of the range.
Okay. Cool. Well, let's move on to the next round and we'll stay updated.
Okay.
Updated.
Let's go. So last time when you put me on the spot, I was okay, but I took in what you said. I might have not said it word for word, but you, in our last Well, was it our first one? It was our first conversation. Yeah. And you guys got to check out the first interview that we did, which
How
I'd break it
That was-
faster. That was a good one. And so, my response was solid, but I was a little rusty.
Uh-huh.
And but you coached me to say something like this. Maybe it wasn't word for word. So is that and let's give some feedback now. Coachability is important in interviews, but was that all right or
Yeah, that was actually really good.
Yeah.
If I had to be like nitpicky, the only piece of coaching I would give is on that second response of like you being like, I want to be at the upper end of the range. One thing I always remind people is like, don't over index on just currency and what you're going to make. Always wrap it back into like the full package.
I forgot that part. Now it's coming back.
Yeah.
Yes. And so it's something like I see myself at the upper end of the range, but at the end of the day, and I'm go off the cuff, like I really value being in a culture where I'm a good fit with great teammates, where I have a big upside and I can make a positive impact for customers for a long time.
Exactly.
And so that's just like you might have said it different last time, but it's like focusing on maybe intrinsic aspects of motivation and meaning and things that maybe someone like a recruiter would also appreciate.
And it goes back to speaking their language. So a recruiter's love language is someone who is going to be their long-term high performer.
Yeah.
Who's not going to be a flight risk either. And so kind of playing
Yeah.
that harmony.
Yeah.
You know,
Dude, you're right. Long term. Yes. And also that's going to contribute to the culture and the team. And I know hiring managers have said this. Like I interviewed an Oracle hiring manager and they're like, I want a team player that's going to actually lift other teammates up and contribute to them.
Yep.
So if you can kind of allude to that, that's always a plus.
And that it will probably be perfect as we transition into how to talk to a hiring manager, because you want to sing their harmony and not just be this individual contributor, but you want to actually be this team player who's going to lift others up when you're like leading the pack. You're not just like, hey, I'm sipping Mai Tais at 4 p.m. on Fridays. Like I'm my number. It's like, no, like the manager's hymn they want you to sing is, no, you're going to hop on team meetings, upskill the whole team.
Yes.
And lift everyone up.
Yeah. I'm going to be sipping my saps on a Friday. But before we get to singing the hiring manager's song, we got to talk about the dynamic between recruiter and hiring manager, because you've gained some real insights working with candidates and seeing like out in the real world some interesting things happening. So tell us about the recruiter hiring manager dynamic and what we have to pay attention to.
Yeah, so this is actually pretty relevant. I'm working with someone from Google right now, and they're looking for different roles. They're networking with someone from Salesforce. So they're like, oh, I'm going to reach out to a recruiter. Well, a recruiter is typically just going to look at your resume as like black and white. Like, do you have the experience or do you not?
Yeah.
If you don't, you're not a fit.
And by the way, like they're looking to leave Google.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I learned, and it was a good experience, but I mean, it's some people like want to get into Google at all costs, but there are a lot of great opportunities, and there are people that want to leave companies like Google and AWS. So it's just all context dependent. But yeah. Anyways, one other thought on Google that came back to me. They are very data driven though, for Google in particular. I know this person's looking to leave Google. And it's to your point though, it's like you have to have the experience. Mm-hmm. There's no like fluffing or getting around it for some companies.
Right.
So
and recruiters in general, from my experience, still look at things like very, very black and white. If you can, really optimize to get in front of, at least for the referral part, like a hiring manager, et cetera, like that's your best bet. And here's why, because it ties into your original question of like, what's the dynamic between the two? I won't say the company name, but I did speak to a head of recruiting at a very well-known company, and they kind of gave me a story, because that was a question I asked them. I'm like, well, what's the relationship between you and a hiring manager at, internally within your company? And they pretty much said like, it's ultimately the hiring manager who makes the decision. And I was like, well, what do you mean? Like, if you had like the perfect candidate, everything, like, can't you just like get them the job? And they pretty much said, no, like it's the hiring manager's team. Like, I'm working to help them get the best players that they know will, produce the best results. And so they told me a story about an amazing account executive that they brought through the whole process, had all the experience, checked all the boxes, all the criteria possible. And when it came to the final round, like they actually crushed it. but the hiring manager was not a fan that they did not get a thank you within 5 minutes
Mm.
of.
And that's the thing. I've actually seen like hiring managers from Gong. Adam Ochart, he's done well. He's like you, man. He had a meteoric rise to like 5 promotions at Gong. He did say that he wants to see like, well, okay, 5 minutes is extreme. I think he said an hour.
Yeah.
But there are hiring managers. That's one thing for the audience to take away. They do want to see the quick follow up. But 5 minutes,
Yeah. And
that's actually pretty extreme, dude.
and the recruiter, was debriefing with the hiring manager and giving all this context. Well, they were on vacation, they were doing all this stuff.
Yeah.
And ultimately, like, it's an arm wrestling match, but the hiring manager gets to say who they want on their team.
They're the decision maker.
And the recruiter, they have to abide by it, and they'll have to start over the process, get, 10 candidates lined up. A few will drop out or whatever. A few will move on and do it all over again. And so ultimately, like, the hiring manager is like who you need to impress, because it's their team at the end of the day. Like, the recruiter just augments the team to like really bring in top talent.
Yeah. Even at my last company, I remember the recruiter had a certain job to get done to help. Like, if I'd interview someone, they needed my feedback, and they were kind of the conduit to facilitate the process and be the like in your corner wanting you to win. But it comes down to, the feedback you get, especially from the hiring manager.
Yeah.
So they can't override the hiring manager no matter how much they like you. So that sets a stage for this, hiring manager interview. And it's going to be different from company to company. Some startups have a different process versus big tech companies, but you're going to have interviews with the hiring manager. It is critically important. And you're going to get questions, of course, again, about your background. Walk me through your resume and experience. You'll get that at like every round. And they're going to want to hear how you frame it. Why should I hire you? Tell me about your vision. Like, why do you want to work here? And you're going to get some behavioral questions. Tell me about a time. I always say this one, right? Like coachability, that tell me about a time you received a piece of feedback and how you implemented it. And there's a ton of examples that the audience can check out in that 37 question interview, right? We'll get role related questions maybe on like, how do you solve or challenges you'll face in the role? Like, how would you social sell on LinkedIn? How would you research a prospect? Giving a little bit of context. But ultimately, with that in mind, what else would you add about how to really maximize the hiring manager conversation, maybe sing their song, as you had said before?
Yeah. When you think of what goes into connecting to any hiring manager, it's like, what sort of information can you get ahead of time to create higher levels of familiarity? That way you're not entering in as just like a blank canvas of nothing. So can you network with people internally and say, hey, I know there was the company offsite, SKO or whatever. Curious, what were your big takeaways and what initiatives do you feel like your direct manager is most focused on right now? Like, getting that level of detail is very important, because then when you actually go into the conversation, you can highlight. It's like, and I always say, give context before you ask a question. It's like, hey, I know you had your data summit or whatever 2 weeks ago, and actually had the opportunity to network with some people in the organization who mentioned that X, Y, and Z said this was a top priority, and that you are probably going to be really focused on this initiative. I'm curious, why is that important for you? And so really getting that level of granularity is good from like a good question standpoint. So I think that is like really important. There is something that I'm actually even more obsessed with, which is even before that. Do you care if I get into it?
Yeah, and I also have a story of my own example for my first promotion at Oracle of bringing the personal touch that I'll never forget.
Can I hear it?
So should I say it and then we do because I want to make sure we hit on your point too.
Yeah, let's
okay.
do it.
So I was going from SDR to AE, and I had an interview with a guy, Derek Guglielmino. What a great guy. They called him Googs. And so it was an internal promotion. And I had networked well, which is like key once you're in tech sales, right? To build your political capital and your relationships as you look to position yourself to get to the next level. And there was a girl, Kate, that I knew through Toastmasters. We got to know each other, but she had worked with him directly. Mm-hmm. She knew him well. So I connected with Kate, and she gave me the answers to the test, all about him, what made him tick, what he looked for. But she gave me a line to open up the interview that just like set a rosy tone for the whole thing. She said, tell him that, or ask him, has anyone ever told you you look like a young Leonardo DiCaprio? And she said like that was her joke to him, or like an inside joke. And I started off like, has anyone ever told you you look like a young Leo? I might have said it that way, young Leo DiCaprio, something like that. And he lit up, and there were other personal touches I was able to bring thanks to that networking.
Mm-hmm.
And it really did create an experience where he did say afterwards, he said, that was the greatest interview I've ever had.
Really?
And I will say, like, he was a young manager at the time, but still, when you get a response like that, it's the power of networking and gathering that personal touch. Something so personal, that wouldn't make sense for anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
You hit on the term familiarity, brother. Mm-hmm. And this is what I coach on in Outbound. How can we create that familiarity with the prospect? So I had to throw in that story, brother, and just to emphasize the points that you're making.
And so I would actually want to tactically lay that out as a framework to people. Yeah. I'll say people are going to be in two camps. They're going to say, you're going to have some people listening to this say, well, Chris, I don't know anyone. And I'm trying to network. I'm not talking to anyone. Like, how do I build familiarity? And then you'll have another group of people who are like, I'm going to network. I'm going to find a way, and I'm going to, land a Leonardo joke like you did.
And there is a way to do it, but it takes work if, say, you're external, you're not in the company. But I was fortunate, but yeah, tell us more about these two camps and how to think about it.
Yeah. So let's play like worst case scenario, like you're external, 0 people accept your LinkedIn request. Like all you can do is like look at their LinkedIn profile or something. And even if you can't, like, let's even play like the worst case scenario, like you can't even find them on LinkedIn because you don't know who's going to be there.
Yeah.
The thing that I always say is it all goes back to, if I'm meeting a stranger, how do I create a level of familiarity? And so I always say, like, I am dangerous enough to talk about almost any topic in the world for like 30 seconds. So like people know that I have like some sort of like industry knowledge. So if someone wants to talk about Bitcoin mining, I could talk about that for about 30 seconds just to let them know I know enough about it, but like not enough to like get myself in trouble.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually like a superpower for sales.
Yeah.
But what I always tell people is it's kind of like a dartboard exercise where you want to just take some guesses if you don't know anything about someone. And this is very important because this is rapport building. So this is going to be like the least politically correct thing I probably ever say on a podcast. So, but I think we're kind of over that era in 2024.
This is a good hook.
Yeah. So what I always say, like, if you frame, so let's say I'm meeting with a hiring manager, I'm probably not going to try to build rapport before we get into the meat and potatoes of the conversation, asking, like, I'm just going to take a guess that maybe she's not obsessed with sports or something like that. That's more of like a male thing.
Yeah.
Be like, oh, I see you live in New York. Like, do you just love the New York Jets? Like, it might not resonate with a woman as much as like a male. So like you can kind of take some guesses. But I always tell people, like, to create levels of familiarity with a stranger, at minimum, like, even if you're opening the conversation, like, figure out what city they're in, something like that, then call out like a really cool event that goes on that time of year, a good restaurant, or like something that's kind of unique, or just like look up the company. So it's like, if you're networking with a manager at like MongoDB, it's like, oh, that's so cool. Like, I looked up where you guys worked and I saw there's this beautiful place called the Greenbelt, like right near your office. Like, is that a trail you ever hit during your lunch break? And so like really calling out like these local things that are nearby, or it's like, this isn't my cup of tea, but, I saw there's this event called South by Southwest this March, and people always talk about it. Were you able to make it to any of the events last week when it was going on? And so just like ways you can make people feel like you're kind of an expert in their own world is going to make them gravitate towards you than you just being like a complete stranger. Also on the flip side, like, don't ask like really stupid questions. Like when I was in Hawaii, I would we'd be role playing this and people would be asking me questions to build rapport before you get into the meat and potatoes, which is very important. And I'll never forget, there'd be like so many people well-intentioned, but just asking, oh, Jay, I saw you're in Hawaii. How's the weather? And I'm like, it's beautiful every day. Like, that's like not much boring of a pattern interrupt. Like, it's just a layup question where you could ask something just a little more detail and say like, hey, like I hear you're in Hawaii. I'm sure there's like a million nice beaches there. Like, how do you choose which one you're going to go to every weekend? Like, just like that little pattern interrupt, like really shows that you're curious, and it just makes the conversation more fun.
Yeah. You're doing what this Harvard MBA told us to do in a podcast where he talked about bringing a risky gift to prospects. It's like a value hypothesis or a thoughtful question where you're like, what if they don't go to the beach? Well, you made a thoughtful effort to ask an intelligent question that showed you cared, and you're trying. So bring a risky gift. And one of those risky gifts is a personal acknowledgement, a personal question that isn't, oh, you're in Hawaii, how's the weather? What we did in this process, by the way, is we hit on familiarity being so important. It's as if you create a sense like we're getting on the same side of the table, the same team, and it sets a context for the conversation to flow through a rosy lens. So the personal touch rapport is important. And we hit on different flavors of familiarity. The ultimate flavor is what I showed with Googs. Right? I talked to someone on the inside that knows him personally that gave me something so personal it would never make sense for anyone else. Then there's another layer. Like you said, go to LinkedIn. And sometimes there's good nuggets about their personal interests and their corgi they love. Or recently I was working with someone and we saw, like, I like to go down to the endorsements. And, oh, you know, I saw that Tina Tucker. What?
Sorry, Tina.
Tina. I saw that Tina Tucker actually gave you an endorsement back when you were at Clearbit, and she said you were the most supportive manager that encouraged her to really express herself and step to her potential and take more risks. And that's the type of manager I want to work for. I'm curious, like, what is your managerial style like? That managerial sounds funny, but like, how do you, how do you invest and bring out the potential in the people on your team? You know, and I think that was a solid question, but like the point is, it's just even that effort, and that's gonna make them feel good too, to like bring back that old person they used to work with. And so let's just say though, looking at LinkedIn and finding personal nuggets in general is another layer, and it can be very good. It showed you put an effort, but then you mentioned the other layer. If you got nothing to work with, man, you're so right. Like, talk about something local. I noticed when I was at Google Cloud and I did my first on-sites ever, I had a funny first meeting where my buddy James, he was a mentor of mine, he like rode with me, you know, and went to the meeting. And I was kind of awkward, surprisingly, right? You'd never think I'd be awkward. But I learned a lesson. Like, my small talk was just like, I don't know, I'm like, I forget what I said, but it just, I wasn't... you know, greasing the gear. Is that an expression? You know what I'm saying? It just wasn't flowing. But what he taught me, and then James got in there and he was asking about the local best pizza. The local thing is really smart, even with an on-site with an executive for the first time, it applies to interviews. So anyways, those are like different levels of familiarity. And in the worst case, do what you said and talk, you know, make an effort to ask a thoughtful question about what's going on locally.
Yeah, so it's just a spectrum. It's like, if you know nothing, you can still find something. There was even an interview. It was one of my first interviews ever in person. This was when I graduated. It was with Eli Lilly, a pharmaceutical company.
Yeah.
While I was getting rejected a ton.
Yeah.
And I remember I could find nothing about this guy I was interviewing with, like nothing really on his LinkedIn, anything. And I just put his name in Google and then the city.
Yeah.
And I was like, this guy's a CrossFit coach. And then like I found a way to tie that into rapport building. So it's like, if you have nothing, like still try to find something, like kind of, you know, throw a dart.
Yes.
But the goal, like Chris, you did, is like work your way up to something so specialized, like Leonardo DiCaprio. Like,
that was
like the spectrum, but also, and I actually,
but you don't need
it's not going to kill you, but I think something a lot of people actually do is they don't even try to create familiarity. So if you're like, hey, I am from Oregon, and then I'm just like, oh, I've never been there. Like, it's just kind of awkward.
Yeah.
Like, you got to try.
Dude, you have to try. And this is the foundation of what I coach on outbounding. It's communication that shows you care. Communication that costs you something because you put in a little legwork and effort to do research. But that's when you stumble on serendipity. When you discover, oh, shoot, they went to my university. Oh, they lived in They went to MIT and I lived in Boston for a few years in Davis Square, not too far off. You start to find commonalities. They're into TikTok as well. No, I'm kidding. But the point is, you can stumble on serendipity when you put in the work to do some research, or at least on LinkedIn, but also talking to someone at the company. It's so worth it. And it really, I say it's communication that costs you something, but it doesn't really cost you too much. But I've said this in the last podcast, but it's the down payment we make to earn the trust, to create opportunities, to win partnerships, and to close the deal on our dream job.
I love that. And there's another saying, maybe just like a rewording of it, is like, if you want 30 minutes of someone's time, show that you did 30 minutes of research. Like it's just a good trait.
Yes. And dude, reciprocity is embedded into our culture, right? When we give something to someone, people feel like they owe you something, and there's nothing good or bad about it, but it's how it goes. And it's like, it is a gift to acknowledge people, to put in effort, and to be curious about them.
And
that's something
like cold calling, or not even cold calling, but like cold email wizard. So
yeah, but I'm applying the principles, the familiarity. It's so funny, dude. The same types of principles help at both levels of wowing in interviews and getting the job, and then wowing in a cold email that really cuts through the noise. So we rocked the hiring manager interview, and we're going to assume that, the audience is going to check out the 37 questions, and they're going to see all types of behavioral and role-related questions, right? Which I already mentioned, like their behavioral is trying to say, tell me about a time, like tell me a story that illustrates you're coachable, or you're goal-oriented, you're gritty, you're a team player, right? And you did mention, I don't know if there's anything you want to add, that like a hiring manager wants someone they're not going to have to babysit, that has an idea of what they're getting into, and that's going to contribute to the team and make their life easier. Is there anything you want to add? We don't have to, because we've covered a lot and we're going to get to the next round, but on what a hiring manager looks for.
Just framework, every round, know who you're talking to, find a way to connect what they actually care about. Recruiter, hiring manager, VP, they all have different levels of initiative. So just have that level of empathy, and just, I would say that's the high level concept.
Yeah. And of course, with a hiring manager too, like we're going to ask great questions, like you said, that show thoughtful research and context to then ask the question. But with a hiring manager, we have an opportunity now to do it in a thoughtful way, but to ask them about what they look for in a candidate ultimately, and get I remember, I'm kind of quoting you in the past, I keep saying it today, but get the answers to the test.
Yeah.
Get the answer. What do they look for? And then you have an opportunity to sell yourself in the process, to show them that you are that candidate that they're looking for. Now, okay, let's just say sometimes there's a culture fit interview. Sometimes, I'm not saying all the time. I've seen it with like you're going for an SDR role, you meet with an SDR lead, and they're going to ask you about your background and different things, and see if you possess the qualities it takes to succeed. But they're also, you have an opportunity to connect with them and ask them questions about the role. And so I have seen that. And I don't think it's honestly not there's not a whole lot to elaborate on that, but have you seen that yourself?
Yeah, I know some companies are like really big on culture, like AWS, they do the round, right? I forget what they call it, but like they're really big into like their pillars of culture and everything like that.
So, and Google, just interject, I mean, they have a Googliness interview, right, to see about a culture fit. So some companies more than others do have specific interviews for that. And in my case, I had Bryce Buffalo, cool name. He was an engineer, and so more of like a peer type role. And he asked me questions about, how would you handle a conflict with a difficult teammate? And there were things about relationships and like kind of leadership too. Tell me about a time you messed up and how you handled it. But that's also like a behavioral question. So anyways, so you've seen it, and it just kind of depends on the company.
Yeah, and don't overcomplicate it. Like it's going to be very similar to all those 37 questions we went through, but just, plug in, even if it's like with AI or something, like what are the core values? What's the culture like? How can I communicate these stories to fit with it best? But also like be yourself. Like don't feel like you need to totally transform who you are as a human to like fit in with the culture. Like some companies just might not be a fit. But yeah, it's like there might be a cultural interview. Don't over rotate on it. Like there's also like these assessments companies give out to even get
There's
you an
some
extra.
like
But
MongoDB gives assessments. I don't even know how I feel about that, but
I don't either.
you know, sales, it like being able to take tests isn't an indication of being successful in sales. It's your approach to the hiring manager. And to that hiring manager's point, even though it was a little crazy to say it's like follow up in 5 minutes, that is assessing for the behaviors that are required to succeed, like being responsive and following up. So, but it's those things more than a test. But
then you can even like this is the way I think. It's like if I know I'm a high performer and like that is the one thing preventing me from getting a job at that company, for me, I'd be like, probably I don't really want to work there if like that's the expectation and they don't have the audacity to just communicate that like they really want that characteristic. So my thing with any like cultural fit, don't like change who you are as a human just to like get
yeah,
a role. There's so many good companies out there. Like just be yourself. Like that was one thing that I loved when I worked at Dell, is like I was totally myself. Like I had a man bun back in the day. I remember when I was in the office, like even when I was in the role as an SDR, like I was wearing like barefoot work shoes essentially. I was wearing a posture band, blue light blocking glasses. Like I was just myself. Like, and at the end of the day, like that's how you want to feel when you get into a company. Like you don't want to feel like you just signed up for like the wrong thing you got into. So
yes.
I think that's very important, is like just show who you are during the interview. And more often than not, like if you're yourself, like people will either gravitate towards you or not, and it will solve itself.
Yeah. Be choosy and do homework too. Like you can get an idea of the culture when you talk to people and you look even online. And so try and put yourself in a position where you're not, you know, interviewing with a company that has a toxic culture. But if you do find out that, like even in that manager case, it might be that that person ends up being a real micromanager and a boss that you might not want to work with. So everything works itself out, and it is an abundant tech sales world. You know, there's so much opportunity out there.
And you could even have fun with it. You could like internally ask someone like kind of a joke with banter, like, how would you describe the Kool-Aid that they hand out within your company?
Yeah.
Like kind of like, are you drinking the Kool-Aid? You know,
Yeah.
that's the culture within every company. We all got Kool-Aid we're trying to dish out.
Yeah, I drank the Kool-Aid at Oracle. It was red, blue at Google, for sure. But eventually, I did learn the reality of tech sales is that we are numbers, and you got to be careful not getting too caught up on the Kool-Aid. But dude, there was one other point I wanted to make on this whole topic that we've gone down. If it comes back, it comes back. But another stage of the interview process with a lot of companies are sales exercises. So I just want to walk us through some of the different types of exercises. Mock cold call role plays. You're the interviewer. You're going to act as a hypothetical customer, a prospect. I'm the SDR applying for the role. I am the seller. I'm the SDR as if I'm at the company, and I'm going to call you, and we're going to go through a role play, and I'm going to try and set a meeting with you. So there's that. And so basically what I'll do, I mean, is maybe just walk through, like you said, frameworks are everything. And so I don't know that we're going to go like into a full blown, I mean, we could, but like maybe I could just walk through the different components of what you want to prepare. We could do that, because then there's also a cold email exercise and a mock presentation. So these sales exercises are just, assessing for like, do you have some sales acumen, and also, are you willing to take some feedback? You could actually have a perfect cold call, perfect presentation, and the hiring managers will still find a way to give you constructive criticism to see how you handle it.
Yeah.
So, so that coachability that's important, isn't it?
I've also seen like there is an individual who we helped get a job at Ramp, and I remember like they looked at his cold email, everything they were going to do, and it was like, I mean, it was a great email, but we knew they were going to do like a quick pause at one point and be like, okay, cool, like we're going to give you 5 minutes to make this better now. And essentially it's like he just had to figure out how to make it even better.
Yeah.
So it's like there's always going to be like these things thrown at you, but is there, what would you like to get into, just the overall framework? Or?
Yeah. So just, we can't get too intimidated by the cold call role play, and it's actually quite simple when we break down a cold call into different components. So I just want to encourage the audience to think through the different parts and come up with your own framework. And I do have a free cold calling system that has multiple scripts, 15 objections with example responses.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's something, but it's linked in a lot of my videos. I don't know that I'll link it in this one because I want to put the resume in there because that's going to be huge. But yeah. So one, it's like you got to have an opener that ends up what that impacts is whether the prospect's going to hear you out on like why you're calling or hang up on you. So it could be like, hey Jay, this is Chris calling from Dell, and I probably caught you in the middle of something. So before I go any further, do you have a minute for me to share why I'm reaching out to you specifically?
Yeah, sure.
So I talk with a lot of, and actually I don't know the ideal persona. Like, is it like heads of infrastructure?
Yeah, IT manager,
IT managers,
CTO,
yeah, something like that. So let's just do the frameworks. Like I talk I talk to a lot of CIOs or heads of infrastructure IT manager. You pick one like yourself, and they're typically dealing with X problem, Y challenge, or Z challenge. I'm curious, do any of these currently resonate with your priorities, or do you have it all figured out? Or I'm curious, how are you managing this today? This is just one example of a framework, but just being able to say like just simple framework like that is like, I'm a trusted advisor,
like a value thesis coming into it, like, hey, honestly the familiarity.
Yeah, so it's just one is I'm a trusted advisor. I talk to people like you in your role, and I forgot to say this, but at companies like yours. So I talk to a ton of CIOs at other manufacturing companies. For example, if I pick an ICP. And what I'm typically hearing is they're dealing with X challenge, but you want to pick out concrete challenges, Y challenge or Z challenge. So you're framing up problems. In sales, we're problem finders. We're working with the prospect to understand, can we find a problem we're solving? And we're an expert. We talk to people like them in their role at companies like theirs. And they're, based on what we're hearing in the market, their peers are facing these challenges. And so we're just bringing that up because that's actually what prospects typically find interesting is expensive problems that they should know about that might be impacting them. Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of framing it. There's different ways to do it, but ultimately asking an open-ended question. Like, are you seeing any of these more or less? Or do any of these resonate with your current priorities? Mm-hmm. And sometimes I'll throw in like, or do you have it all figured out? And most are going to actually flip the other way and say, no, I don't have it all figured out. But that's one example. You could just pick one big expensive problem. I talk to, CIOs like yourself, all at manufacturing companies all the time. And they're typically dealing with, I don't know, I'm just going to make this up, like infrastructure costs ballooning out of control and they're way over budget and it has X impact. I'm curious, like, how are you managing your infrastructure costs? And so it just depends on the solution, but ultimately that's a framework, right? How do you pique curiosity? And it's predicated on, that's where we need to look at the company's website and look at case studies and see like what types of customers are helping, quotes from like the CIO, like, what are they saying? And you can bring that in your messaging. But the best thing is we talked about, man, this whole conversation, network with SDRs or AEs who are top performers on the inside and hear how they do it. So that's the ultimate thing. So let's just say we'll move quicker now. You get an opener. You get a, piquing curiosity. You're also ready for if they give you a brush off objection, like I'm not interested or I'm running to a meeting. Sorry, I know you're busy. I don't want to waste your time. Let me get to the point. Is reducing your infrastructure bill a priority right now? You might throw in like a pain point and see. And worst case, I'm going in the weeds now, and so we'll keep moving along. But worst case, you'll show in the role play if they're like, no, I'm busy, I can't talk. They insist. Well, would you be opposed to getting some time in the calendar at a future time, just so I'm not doing you a disservice and calling you out of the blue again? And you're just showing you hang in there. You have a framework. You can set some time in the future. But anyways, you pique curiosity. Then you're going to ask some discovery questions. I've got the template, or the free cold calling system with all types of discovery questions. And so you want to have some good questions to keep it flowing, because the longer conversations last, and the more you get into pain, the more you have a hook for a meeting and the higher conversion to setting the meeting. Mm-hmm. And so just by asking discovery questions, that's huge. And then have a way to set the meeting. So, and then I'll do it here, this thing, and then we'll keep it rolling. Okay.
Sweet.
Yeah. But so Jay, it sounds like, your infrastructure costs are like 20% higher than you want them to be, and that's actually costing you hundreds of thousands of dollars. Sounds like it's a priority to reduce that bill and solve this. So I'm glad I called, because we help, as I said, other companies, like insert a manufacturing company, reduce their costs by 40%. I don't know, pulling out of my you-know-what. Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
How about we set aside some time with your dedicated account executive, where I'm not calling you out of the blue, to talk through some relevant customer stories, the results we're producing for some of your peers in the industry. And at minimum, you're going to come away with some useful ideas. Do you have your calendar handy?
Yeah, I do. Let me grab it real quick.
Well, I see that your account executive has Tuesday at 2 p.m. Central open. Does that work for you?
Yeah, I just sent it over.
Okay, well, I sent it over now. Can you confirm you accepted the invite?
I'm at lunch right now, but I will when I get back to my computer.
Okay, and is there anyone else who needs to be a part of the conversation?
Just me.
Okay, looking forward to talking next Tuesday at 2 about how we can help reduce your infrastructure costs. I appreciate the opportunity and hope you have a great weekend.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah. Oh, you're stingy. No. Anyway, so that's an example. You come up with it.
Cold calls.
You come up with a framework, and so let's say with the cold email exercise, I'm not going to get in the weeds, but you want a good subject line, you want a personalized, value-driven email, a good interest-based call to action. I've got plenty of videos on the channel for that. And then mock presentations. I remember working with a guy in a Snowflake presentation where you've helped people get into Snowflake. In this case, the guy I was working with had to do a presentation to Nike executives on how they'd
popular one.
Yeah, how would like, what are Nike's strategic initiatives, and how can they leverage data in Snowflake to meet those initiatives? Is there anything you want to share on this one? And then we'll go to the panel interview, and we'll probably tie a bow on this. So, anything you want to share on the presentation?
This actually might have been the round that guy I met in the sauna last night was talking about with Navan. I think he was going in for his like presentation where like the common one for at least SDRs, AEs is a bit different because they like want to see how you run a discovery. But for him, it's like the, emails, everything like that, presentation. If you had to boil it down to one thing, I'm like, just keep flow at all cost. Like, don't let anything disrupt you. Don't let anything get under your skin. Like, keep flow at all costs. Like, they just want to see that you can hang in the arena, communicate well. And even if like you don't know it, like still be smooth with your communication and understand how to navigate through it. Like there's a lot of, small details you could over rotate on, but I think the ability to be able to improv, just like you have to do on a cold call, is just like a good skill to have. So even if you don't know what you're doing at some point, like just kind of roll with the punches and keep the flow going. And then once you break scene at the end, you can, maybe let them know it's like, hey, you guys kind of threw a curveball at me, but my priority with how I responded was, I still wanted them to feel like I was a trusted advisor and keep the flow going. And I just want you to know when tough challenges happen, I have that, emotional intelligence and skill set to keep the flow going and make sure the customer feels taken care of, and I can get back to them with the right answer.
That's key, is preparing for when we don't know, and, just making it clear that if you're in an actual scenario with a customer, you would actually say something like, I don't want you to do you a disservice and pretend like I know the answer to that technical question, but I'm committed to getting an answer as quickly as possible, leveraging our resources. Now, one question I do have is, why is that important to you? Mm-hmm. And there's things you can do like that in a situation where you don't know the answer, and you're communicating that you have emotional intelligence, you're a professional. But yeah, honestly, you could tell with the cold call role play, I got in the weeds. I'm so tempted to go in the weeds on the presentation. There's ways to open presentations with confidence and set an agenda and structure. Let's just keep it super high level. There's ways to show really thoughtful research, but keep the prospect engaged in the presentation. Ask questions that you weave in from time to time to discover more as you go, so you're not just completely talking at them. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, as you gather that discovery, even tailor your presentation, and then to close on next steps. And so there's just simple frameworks that you can put into place so that overall you have some guardrails and structure for the overall thing. And there might be curveballs, but you're, like you said, ultimately flow with it. Mm-hmm. And the final exercise I would say is that I know a head of sales development where she has a hypothetical exercise that is similar to sell me this pen. She'll ask the candidate if they have a car, and if they do, sell us your car. And it just comes down to discovery skills, right? Can you ask questions to understand whether they've had a car and what they use a car for, if they have in the past, like why it matters to them. You're finding a need, what their criteria is of what they look for in a car, and just doing some discovery on those things to then be able to tailor and show that your car might be the fit and then a close. So it's like these exercises, I just at a high level don't want the audience to be intimidated. We could really get in the weeds on it for specific exercises, but ultimately just have a approach and a structure, be curious, do some prep, and it'll go well.
And just circling back real quick, the one thing I forgot to mention on the cold call is just be prepared for them to throw objections at you, like no matter how good you are. So like just
like you gave me a little thing, like I would have wanted you. It wasn't a real objection, but it's more like it was small. You're like, I would have wanted you to accept the invite, but you didn't. And it's like, but even little things like that. But they might just say, "Oh, I'm busy," or "No, do you have time to talk?" No.
Yeah, and they're just testing to see. So it's like,
hang in there.
Like you should just prepare for them to like push back at you like 4 times, and they're gonna like just give you friction. So just like go in with that mindset that you can lose the cold call. Like I know some companies that actually want to push you to the brink of losing just to see how you react. So like just know like that's part of the process.
Yeah. Okay. I have a couple metaphors with this or examples that it's just these are powerful. But like one guy I met at our buddy Anthony's bachelor party, he was in the military. I forget what group. There was an exercise where they knew they were going to be knocked unconscious. Like, this is so intense, in the water, like drowned. Like imagine you're in the water getting wrestled, and I forget what it's called. They knew they would be to the point of being unconscious, and the way you passed is by not giving up on fighting, even though you would lose and get knocked unconscious. Can you frickin' believe that, dude? And so the people that gave up, not only did they get knocked unconscious, but they were ruled out. So he passed it, but he said, "Whatever it takes, I will not stop fighting." Dude, so how fast I got goosebumps. Imagine applying that to the cold call situation. It's just a little lower stakes. Okay, isn't that crazy? That's a real thing.
That's actually crazy.
That's a
what
cool.
A,
that's
what a parallel. To sales.
What a parallel, dude. Oh man, it's
crazy.
Like the key, guys, is just to go down swinging, man. Like sometimes they're like the example.
That's actually what they do for government SDR roles.
Yeah, government. But dude, I had another example, but I forgot it, and it's fortunately for the audience, right? Because we're let's get to the panel interview.
Yeah,
and then we'll wrap
tune in for another podcast to hear the next story.
Yeah, there's so many stories. Oh, so let's just talk about the panel interview real quick. Some companies have the panel where you have a VP of sales, a hiring manager. It just depends, though, an HR leader. This is just an interesting dynamic because you have multiple people, and we're going to want to continue to try and bring a personal touch to each of these people. I have good questions for each of these people. You might get the same types of questions, but the grand slam or slam dunk questions of walk me through your experience and, why do you want this, et cetera, and some behavioral questions like, this just came to me because I hear it a lot, like, sell me on something you're passionate about, because I want to see the twinkle in your eye. But is there anything you'd add just super high level beyond the fundamental principles we've talked about, like create familiarity, ask amazing questions? Obviously you do want to close, and like you want to have stories. You've told us that storytelling is so critical to interviewing, but anything you want to add around like the panel interview? It doesn't even mean that this is going to be the last interview. Right?
Interviews are getting crazy nowadays.
So
like how many rounds?
Yeah, and also it could be like a second to last step, but it's another type of stage. And that's why I wanted to kind of end with that. So anything else you'd add?
Panels can be interesting because there's a lot of people there. I think going out of your way to research everyone and like make them feel heard and understood, that's really important. And just asking the right questions in congruence to what the role titles are, I think are like very important. So, when you're asking a question to the VP or director, asking more of a VP director level question to that individual is really important. So asking, what what is most your energy focused on for the next 12 months? Like just high level questions like
Yeah.
that to a director is good, but also coming in with like a value hypothesis to come in,
Yeah.
and saying, hey, like I'm seeing all these trends. I'm curious what you're seeing from a director level. I think there's also something to say about, I see this a lot with tech sellers. This is kind of a funny dynamic, I think, but there's a lot of different types of tech sellers, but clearly when anyone's devoted their craft to anything, I think making them feel important for the 40 plus hours a week they've invested into that over like a lot of years is very important. One of the questions an individual asked that was like really good is they put them on a pedestal with the context before, and it was like, well, hey, like I obviously you're the director, you're making a lot of big choices here, and I'm sure you've actually been in this interview a lot, like vetting out a lot of candidates over the 3 years you've been in this role. I'm curious for you specifically, who's been the most memorable hire you've ever had and what made them so memorable? Like
Mm,
something like that, that's acknowledging that they're important. They've actually like been leading the recruiting process for a long time and like handpicking who they want in their organization.
mm,
And asking like who's the most memorable, something like that can also be a really good way. But I think just acknowledging like the power that some of these people hold is like really important, because
yes.
anyone who's devoting their life to something, they find value within it. And so if you can lift them up and also be like, you've probably seen way more than I've ever seen. And so I'd just be so curious to understand who has been that person and what really stood out about them. Or just like a really pattern interrupt question where it's like, hey, like, we're meeting 12 months from now and we can't grade, performance based on just one metric like everyone would revenue or quota attainment. What's like maybe a hidden metric you really look for from your level that would show that this was a very successful hire?
Mm. And a fundamental human need, just going back to your point of acknowledgement, is to be seen and respected. So I
Mm-hmm.
actually really love that. And this metric question is definitely innovative and creative. I love that. And yeah, dude, it's been fun running through the different stages of the break into tech sales or land an better AE role sales cycle.
Yeah, just
Now,
maximize your income in tech sales.
yeah, it's all a vehicle, right, to creating, at least what I say is, I actually say the vehicle to creating personal transformational life of freedom and impact. So
That's awesome, man.
yeah, that's like my mission. I was actually writing out the mission and vision for Tech Sales
Oh,
Accelerator, and
it's
it
important.
comes down to that, and you as well. Like, I want to hear your vision and mission real quick, because it's important. It's the heart behind it. You have a lot of heart behind what you're doing. And
Mhm.
then I just want to finish on, and we're over as always because it's too good, but like closing in an interview, and I already know I have an idea of what that looks like. And then any like negotiation tips. We've hit it before, but it's like there's people that are going to see this video that didn't see the others, right? And so real quick, there's three more quick topics. Your vision and mission.
Yeah, so really like our mission is to help tech sellers accelerate their income in tech sales. Like that's actually been something really cool that we've been working on, is like I'm really curious about why people want to work with us. And I'm always reminded like a lot of the high performers we get an opportunity to work with, whether they're an account executive or they're a sales development rep, they still might be somewhat undecided what they want to do with their career, but they want the insurance policy to be able to work at a really good company with good product market fit and not go through the risk of being back on the job market, unhappy with their company, going through layoffs and re explaining that to a hiring manager and rebuilding political capital. And so, what a lot of our members are obsessed with is like, we just want to help you maximize your income. So, if you're like an SDR, it's like, sweet, let's get you with like a Ramp, HubSpot, Snowflake, or like, let's get you in with like the real deal companies. So you're not just like cold calling for 4 years with nothing to show for it. And same with account executives. And I think as we, are recording this, we're in this hybrid society now where there's more freedom than ever, where it's like you could actually start a side business. You could actually work remote and be with your family. There's a lot of advantages tech sales gives people, and so we're on a mission to give people freedom back in their life. And really, tech sales is a vehicle to make that happen, but you
Mm,
have to play your poker chips strategically. And so It's funny because like we are helping people get jobs, but like I've also helped a lot of people in our who've gone through elite tech sales. They'll hit me up. They're like, "What's it like being an entrepreneur? What's it like doing this?" And I'm like, it's and I'll explain everything to them, but I'm like, step one, like let's just get you in a good vehicle. So for the next 2, 3, 4 years while you're building out that idea and you're executing, you have really good money coming into your bank account, so you actually have freedom to take the risk, buy the house, start the family, do the thing. So that is like our mission. And I mean, our vision, man, is like we just want to be, and technically we're like the only company right now like strictly focus on tech sales interviews. Like there's like break into tech sales SDRs, like we'll help SDRs, the upper echelon of them. We'll help account executives. We've helped like even higher level roles like VPs and stuff, but we just are solely focused, and we're the number one company just focused on tech sales interviewing. And that's been really cool to just see like our results and really the market just validating what we're doing. So yeah, our mission is just to stay number one, keep growing our impact, and keep literally releasing the best content possible with advocates of the industry like yourself, really to lift everyone up no matter how long they stay in.
It's fun to lift people up with you, and you've focused on the most impactful aspect of getting a great job to help people maximize their earning, which is interviewing. That's really selling yourself into the opportunity that can really change your whole trajectory in life, not just for you, but for your family too. So I love what you're doing, man. Let's wrap up real quick, rapid fire with, we're in the final round, we're in the interview, and just how do you close on that final round?
So contrarian take, but I just think your performance and like seriously listen to the other podcasts we've done together. Like I've gotten, even a few DMs and call outs like these are really good. Essentially like perform well with everything we're giving out for free, prep ahead of time. Because if you don't do that and then you feel like you need to do this like magical close like a magician, like it's going to be like you didn't do the work ahead of time. So very simply, just two things is we'll say, awesome. Do you have any hesitations moving me? Well, I guess if it's the final round, awesome. Do you have any hesitations in extending an offer my way? Like just kind of ask that. They'll probably be like, we need to regroup as a team, blah, 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 blah. And then you're like, awesome, totally get that. When can I expect to hear back? And that's typically the way that we close it.
Yeah. Well, I found in sales, some of my best deals, I've had a couple scenarios where a deal closed when I was in the Rip Ride Rocket roller coaster in Universal Studios, another in an airplane. And the reason I say that is because it wasn't a heroic last line I said. It was all the groundwork laid in the discovery and the interviewing, or selling, which is compares to interviewing, right? And so this similar type of thing, right? Maybe that offer's coming in not because of a heroic close. You said this magical words that just shocked them and got them on board, but because of all the work you did leading up to it, the preparation even before when you were networking. It all comes full circle, my friend.
Yeah,
networking to each round. You knock the dominoes down one by one, and then the big one falls. And I love that simple close. There's elegance in simplicity.
Yeah, I was just thinking in my head, imagine the opposite. If it's like a Wednesday, or say Wednesday, we're doing the final round, and I'm pretty much like, yep, I'm a free agent until Friday. I'll be getting another offer. Then it's D-Day, so get your offer over to me by then. Like
now, you could have it. You could leverage multiple offers.
I mean, that's a whole different.
Yeah, and that's all.
I was just thinking like that would be. I don't think a lot of companies would jive with that, but
you have to be careful because some companies actually, if you don't make them feel special and you're too bold and brash,
they won't.
So it just depends. But final thing is, we talked about in the beginning how to not shoot yourself in the foot with negotiating early on, and you ultimately see yourself at a higher end of the range that you get the recruiter to share, and you're highlighting that you value intrinsic things like having a company to grow with long term and telling them what they want to hear, honestly. So any other final little tips when it comes time to negotiate? Because you have helped people get tens of thousands of dollars more than they would have otherwise. So I know this might be loaded, but it's just we're going all out to give as much value as we can, and this is the final thing. So any quick tips?
Yeah, like just like the recruiter interview, like you're not aiming to win the negotiation and like a recruiter screening or even with the hiring manager, like you're just building the high frame of value like you did perfectly, where you're like, I want to be in the upper range, but
Yeah.
optimizing for the full package. Even in the final round, like you don't have to talk about money. Like you don't have to talk about money again until you actually get the offer letter. Like that's when you can send an email back. One of two things typically happens. One is, and people working with us, I actually found this out about one of our VPs, which is actually crazy. It blew my mind. She worked for like a sales compensation company. So she was getting all the data on like how they price offers and everything. So she knows like all the thresholds, how RSUs work, how they're distributed through the board, everything.
Cool.
So it's like when she drums up an email, it's like world class because she knows all the things like city and everything. So one of two things can happen. One is like you can send an email, they'll send an email back. The other thing you have to prepare for, and we'll do like a one-off call between this and one of our members who just got a 10K signing bonus. We did this with him, which was really fun. But he sent an email like we drafted and option 2 happened. They're like, hey, are you free for a call? And so then they want to vet out verbally like what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
He was so funny. He actually like had his phone recording him. So like we prepped him like for 15 minutes before he got on the call, like how to handle that and like different levers he could pull per se without being overbearing. But yeah, if they're going to get on a call, like just, be prepared to explain your justification, how you think about things. And also like there are certain scenarios where maybe like you already negotiated to the upper end because you did such a good job and you're already the top candidate, where like we've seen it where it's like we actually can't go up for X, Y, and Z reason. But just know like one of two things typically will happen. There could be an email response, like accepting or declining it, or them wanting to get on a call with you, and just being prepared for either with like a world-class email or like world-class talk tracks is going to be the difference of you like moving and shaking. And even the individual who had a 10K signing bonus, he kind of said, he's like, I've never won a salary negotiation in my life.
Yeah.
And he was like, we kind of joked, we're like, we thought for sure, and it was an AE role, but he was like, when the manager said I was going to get like a signing bonus, he's like, I thought it was going to be like a handshake 2,500. And he's like 10K. He's like, this is baller.
Yeah. And I love it, man. Just preparing, especially if you have a conversation, that there's different levers you can pull. And what you hit on, a signing bonus is something, it's a one-time thing. You might be surprised at what companies are willing to do, or a little more equity. Some individuals, if they have a family, they might value health benefits. Maybe they could negotiate there. Of course, if you can get a higher base, that's huge too. And I actually was thinking about this. I don't know if I've seen it, but a higher commission rate would be interesting, or a higher, I don't know if OTE is
your draw.
Yeah. So, dude, so helpful. What a conversation this was. We emptied the gas tank today. You gave so much. I loved it. Any other final words of encouragement? Otherwise, we'll do the typical sign and dance, or the typical song and dance sign off.
Little Django.
Yeah.
You didn't even tell me to do this, but I think a lot of the people I've worked with have gotten so much value out of it. Like with our mission of helping people accelerate their income in tech sales, like I think there's two fundamental parts to overcome your skill deficit. I think one is interviewing, the other is actually getting like really good results at the job. And so just like people who have worked with me and then entered into your ecosystem, like they are amazed by how quick they can upskill, like one of the most important things of being a seller, which is like PG and like getting things to happen. So if you're really to be like looking to be like cream of the crop in sales, no matter how long you're looking to be, like download some of your free resources, man. Like the level of detail and creativity in today's market is stuff that I haven't even seen AI come up with. And so, yeah, like I don't know if you'll have your cold calling resource or anything, but I just see like so many people's eyes like just light up when they see the type of work you do. And I know that's how I felt when we met probably 4 years ago to steak dinner in East Austin.
Oh, dude. Yeah. When I met you, man, there was something special about you, your energy, the way you showed up. And I'm so grateful for our friendship, and thank you for our partnership and the people that you passed my way. And I just noticed the people that you've helped, they're very high caliber people, recently someone who just got into Databricks, like probably the number one company I would work at
We have
myself.
standards, man.
Right. And it was like such a quality person. And they're the ones you passed me. They're like, wow, Jay made me a believer in coaching. Oh my gosh. Like Jay got me the result. He's amazing. And so it's just a testament, brother, to the results you're producing. And that's why I got the shirt on. And, you know, I really endorse Jay, especially for anyone looking to break in, not just with any company, but with the best of the best. Literally Databricks, Google, Deal. There's a ton of others, man. And so I encourage the audience, encourage you guys to, you know, check out the free resume template that we have linked. I mean, that's just a quick win, man, and it's gonna look so good.
Or just hit me up for any free.
Yeah, you can hit up Jay and
there's so many free things I'm just trying to give out.
Yeah.
Like we literally have capacity constraints.
Yeah,
I'm like trying
yeah.
to give out as much as humanly possible.
And steal my free, you know, cold calling system. That it's got now. It does have mindset. You know me, I love mindset. It's got multiple scripts, 15 objection handling examples, like with responses. So we're a nice little 1-2 punch here. And Jay, again, this was amazing. And guys, I respect you for showing up and investing in your personal and professional development. I am extremely grateful that you tuned in this channel and you're, you know, contributing to this growing tech sales community. And you know the song and dance to your success in tech sales and in life. Happy selling and happy living. And we'll see you in the next one.
All
right.
That was good.
Yeah, that was
good.
good.
So fun.